A week ago Thursday, late at night, as the Miami City Commission had a public frenzy that was loud and spirited, and there was an intermission, and names were called, and a live mic caught somebody referring to a guest we will have on today's show. Commissioner Manolo Reyes will be the first commissioner in the history of Because Miami to accept an invitation to be a part of this party. He was called a name on a live microphone. We'll get to that with him later. But as all of this was happening, we did not do Because Miami on that Friday because Billy Corben has a second job and because you wanted to go over some of the details, which were complicated, to see if indeed Miami had gotten a better deal than the deal it originally agreed to, because you put some of this out in the light. You did the advocacy required to make sure that politicians were held accountable. So now, having reviewed everything you reviewed, and Chris Whittingham is here, jubilant and joyous because
on behalf of Inter Miami,
he gets to have, well, yes, he does get a check from Inter Miami, but on behalf of sports and sports fans and people who love Miami, Chris Whittingham is happy with this deal that turns an otherwise useless golf course, toxic golf course, into something that becomes real estate boon for Jorge Mas and a stadium that will house soccer. But the details of the deal, Billy, do you know if you indeed improved the deal by millions of dollars by making sure that in the last 4 years, a rate that was agreed to in 2018 would be more reasonable in 2022 when Miami has a housing crisis and an affordability crisis that makes us the most expensive place to live in the United States?
First, I'm hung up on the fact that you referred to what I do as my second job, as if this is my first job. I don't know that I heard anything you said after you said that I was busy doing my second job, which is what I do for a living. And instead of being here eating pizza that you're gracious enough to buy me sometimes, we'll pod for pizza over here. Pizza? No. There's CBD, I hear. You know about that, Roy.
Hey, man.
But and also, not a useless golf course, but a golf course that's used for golf. I've never used it for golf because I don't play golf or particularly care for it. But it if you call a golf course useless, then it is useless. But it is used, obviously, for golf. And I think that's where the problem lies with a lot of this argument, that this was some sort of binary choice that Miami had to make between a toxic golf course, which it is a toxic golf course, and a bad land deal in the largest real estate transaction in the history of Miami. That wasn't the case. This was a very complicated and nuanced contract and negotiation that I didn't think was being well handled on behalf of the people of Miami, because I believe that the people who were negotiating on their behalf were not doing so in good faith. Many of them were bought and paid for, and we'll talk to the commissioner about that. Still can't believe that a sitting Miami City Commissioner is going to be on the program. How long have we been asking the mayor and the county mayor, the city mayor, city commissioners, county commissioners to be on this show?
Months. Yeah, months.
Yeah, and we finally got our first city commissioner. It's amazing.
Proud.
Yeah.
So proud.
But the answer to your question, did we have a positive impact? First and foremost, I think it's important to state the intention. The goal of the mini doc that I produced, that was narrated by David Sampson, the goal was not to kill the deal. The goal, I didn't think we could kill the deal. You and I had countless conversations about this, online and offline, that this thing is going to happen. It's a question of when, and it's a question of how bad will it be for the city of Miami taxpayers, whose public property is being privatized. And in fact, the largest contiguous parcel of property that the city owns, that is designated as a public park and a green space. How bad is this deal? Is this public-private partnership going to be? We wanted to drag it out of the shady back rooms where this deal was being done in a really crummy process. And we wanted to bring it into the sunshine, and we wanted to see it negotiated more publicly and with greater transparency for the public officials who are being paid by the taxpayers to act in their best interest. I don't know that we were successful in that. Even if you watch the entirety of that 8-hour meeting last week, I don't know that we have a full understanding of exactly what the parameters of the deal are, what the final deal memo will look like, what the final contract will look like. You heard David Sampson himself say that there's not a couple dozen issues in a contract like this. There are hundreds of issues and ways that this can be negotiated. And believe me, they almost always favor the billionaire and the private sector. So I don't actually know whether the deal got any better. I do know that we had some impact in that I lost count after a while. It was a pretty dangerous drinking game. Every time someone mentioned our video with David Sampson, I mean, it was like, holy shit, someone brought it up again. Someone brought it up again. Oh, Joe Carollo brought up Little Billy. And in fact, interestingly, Joe Carollo, the commissioner from the dais, mentioned me and David Sampson in our mini doc in the context of him trying to negotiate better terms with the team. So for the political theater of it, it was obviously very useful. It really got under Joe Carollo's skin to the point that he threatened to send code enforcement to my house in political retaliation, like some sort of third world dictator. That was pretty fun. I mean, par for the course, but also interestingly, which we've covered a lot on the Because Miami podcast, he basically confessed that the accusations against him in federal court by the owners of the Ball and Chain nightclub and by the former police chief, Art Acevedo, that he does in fact abuse his power as a commissioner and misappropriate or misuse and abuse city offices like the police department and code enforcement as his own personal secret police to retaliate against enemies perceived and real. So that was a pretty interesting development as well.
I don't know how you and in some ways I don't know if like you don't want to take credit or you feel like it could have improved even more, but I felt like there were a lot of concessions. This seemed to be an 11th hour operation, and it seemed like, for the most part, Inter Miami had to agree to the terms that were presented to them. There were some elements of pushback over the course of these several hours of that meeting, but really, as you've stated, the city commission had leverage, and I thought they executed it fairly well. I thought that they did a good job of acting on behalf of the people. I thought this has gone through many layers of democracy. The people of the city of Miami have had their say, both in the referendum, in terms of voting the people who are on the city commission now to represent them. And perhaps you think they could have done a better job, but I just don't know how, and Manolo Reyes later will come on and talk about process, because I've heard him talk about process over and over again. At a certain point, we got to give up the process and get down to the nuts and bolts of a deal. And ultimately, in my view, I think this does bring in millions of dollars in tax revenue, millions of dollars in rent to the city of Miami. I think it brings a public good that is better than the public good that is being served now. And so I just don't know why you're kind of not taking a victory lap on this. This is, I feel like, your activism working.
Only one of us is on the payroll, to be fair, and only one of us benefits financially, I should say, whether this happens or doesn't. I don't win economically either way. It costs me money to get involved in this activism.
I don't win economically either. My rate for doing games stays the same.
Well,
hopefully in 4 years' time it's higher, but it's not yet.
Well, you're getting at least $18 an hour, according to Ken Russell. I understand, according to the deal. But I would say that this wasn't democracy. This was more akin to crony capitalism and oligarchy. I think it was less politics and democracy than it was theater, and like the illusion of choice and the illusion. And that's why I say only time in the terms will tell whether or not there was an impact and whether or not this deal was made any better than it was. What I can tell you is that I saw a lot of money and a lot of community benefits left on the table watching that negotiation happen last week. I can tell you that Ken Russell, well into the night, many hours into this negotiation, he was the swing vote. This thing could have failed. It needed 4-1. It needed at least a supermajority, at least 4 commissioners to pass. They knew Manolo Reyes was a hard no. Ken was the swing vote, and he folded. Cheap suit, man. I mean, he was there. He had a meltdown. This is a guy who has been browbeaten and bullied and abused on the dais by Commissioner Carollo and Diaz de la Portilla for years. Ad hominem attacks. I mean, making fun. I mean, he's half Japanese. They were making fun of his Kim Jong-un haircut years ago. Joe Carollo brought financial documents and put all of Ken's business on the street about his house, and does he live in his district, and does he own it, and who's he leasing it back from? All kinds of crazy, irrelevant shit. And Ken Russell finally seemed like he hit wit's end. Like Ken was like, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. They started yelling at each other. Christine King, who is the chairwoman on the commission, tried to turn off their mics as they were yelling. And then there was a break. There was a recess. And during that recess, something happened. I can tell you what didn't happen. The deal didn't get any better for Ken Russell. But Ken Russell came back a broken man. And he is now running as a Democrat in a primary for Congress. And I will tell you, he is the worst stereotype from the left and the right of what a Democrat is, which is a weak corporate shill, pushover, getting bullied and beaten by a bunch of Republicans, which is what happened, and caving on the deal. And he is not going to win a primary. As I predicted before, his political career ended last Thursday.
We will talk to Manolo Reyes about that and ask him if he thinks that's the case. But Whittingham, you said earlier this week that you found Billy to be generally exhausting.
Yeah, because you did what you wanted to do. Like this, for me, he was a success. And I think it just starts from a place of, no matter what happened, like you said, there are hundreds of things that were out there to be decided. And so unless they spent 3 days debating over 200 contract items, and every single one of them went in the favor of the city of Miami, that you were going to have some issue. Like, I think the cake was baked on you having issues with this, that anything could have happened, and that you don't like the people negotiating, which, by the way, you have every right not to, as they are your elected leaders, to want more out of them. But I just don't understand why, given the parameters, which is most of the negotiation was done already, why you wouldn't just say, all right, I got something better for the city of Miami. This process worked.
What do you mean?
My contributions to it worked.
What do you mean most of the negotiation was done already? That was part of the problem.
They were asked they were asked to negotiate a deal by the voters.
Yes.
They were asked to.
Not a bad one, but one that did. Chris, let me ask you this. Talking about concessions left on the table, let's ask about a real practical issue. Inter Miami, the Beckham Group, Maztec, whoever owns two considerably large lots in Overtown in Christine King's district. One of which they bought on the private market, the second of which they were given a no-bid deal by a majority vote of the Miami-Dade County Commission to ostensibly to build a soccer stadium and parking. Did Christine King even ask for, let alone negotiate, that that ownership group would convert those two parcels into affordable housing in her district? Desperately needed in the city, but particularly in her district, District 5. Did she do that?
I don't know.
Then she left something. Again, she didn't. She left something on the table. Okay? Leverage was not maximized. Okay? Ken Russell, we know he didn't. He said, I'm not just going to roll over for $5 million for my Baywalk project, and then leaves after a 30-minute break. Francis Suarez puts his arm around him, comes back, and is like, on second thought, we good. What happened? And why did this guy, who should have been so thrilled, Ken Russell, that he did this incredibly good thing, the right thing, got the best deal for the city of Miami, why did he look so miserable? Why was he the only commissioner on TV on Friday doing what appeared to be like a mea culpa tour and damage control on why he voted on this best deal in the history of sports welfare, according to the mayor?
Politics.
But getting back to what Chris was saying, anything that could have happened, whatever result would have happened there, you would not have been happy. And that tells you just how bad this government has been.
You would have had a problem. Whittingham is right that no matter what the deal that was negotiated, you would have been skeptical that they had gotten the best deal, just because they're never the ones who get the best deal for the city.
And because we haven't seen the term sheet and the actual contract that's going to be signed.
Well, and there's always one more thing. There's always one more. Like you bring up that one example. There's always one more thing. And at a certain point,
that's not.
No, there is always one more thing.
Two lots. That's not one more thing. I mean,
know, but Billy, you said it could be hundreds of things. So it'd have to be the hundreds of things.
No, I went for the big thing. I went for the marquee things.
Which
I went
is
for
rent,
the big thing,
right?
Which is affordable housing, which is these giant lots of land that they bought in Overtown, specifically one that they bought that was county-owned land that they got a no bid.
It was like
deal
an
on.
abandoned bus depot, right, or
Exactly.
something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that even Ken Russell, even though it wasn't his district, he had the leverage to try to negotiate that for the people of Miami, for the people of another district, because we need affordable housing. And the fact that all of the resources of the city government, including taxpayer dollars spent on outside consultants and attorneys, all of this was focused on this thing. The mayor of the city of Miami, Woody, has not shown up to a city commission meeting in months, despite the fact that by charter, he is supposed to be the chairperson over those meetings. He lets a commissioner do it, as is the tradition. He appoints somebody the chair, in this case, Christine King, and he dips. He's at an NFT convention or selling, imaginary coins, or many times he's upstairs in his office in City Hall watching a meeting taking place downstairs. All of a sudden, the mayor shows up to this meeting to do his job. Why? Not because it was the best thing for the city of Miami, because he was bought and paid for. And I don't like that. And I don't trust the people who are charged with negotiating this deal on behalf of the people of the city. Is there a deal in which I could have said, holy shit, that's a great deal, and the people of Miami are getting a great deal? Probably. Could I have said it's more likely there was a world in which that was the best deal that could be negotiated under the circumstances? But it wasn't. That's just not accurate.
I think it was most of the way towards the best deal negotiated under the circumstances, and I do,
Okay.
I mean, it's most of the way. It's not perfect for everybody. It's most of the way there, and I imagine in 4 years' time, when a 58-acre public park and all of those amenities are there, instead of the golf course,
We should live so long.
it's going to be something
live so
that the city of Miami will appreciate. It will generate revenue in a way that maybe your taxes could be cut. I don't know. But either way, that's going to be a public good that will mostly serve the people of Miami well.
This was a hustle and a land grab that happened in broad daylight. We saw commissioners and a mayor get bought, some of which was transparently done, because we saw commissioners get a lot of money. All the elections that have occurred and re-elections that have occurred since this deal was first introduced 4 years ago. We had one commissioner, Alex Diaz-Laportilla, who since October has gotten $100,000 publicly in donations from the Moss and Inter Miami group, and he's not even running for anything. So the optics of this, the process of this, the fact that before our mini doc, that this was all happening behind closed doors, the fact that while in the midst of a public negotiation last Thursday, the mayor pulled Ken Russell off of the dais to go into a back room and to coax him to a yes when he was a hard no, and out of political theater attempting to be a hero and standing on ceremony. That was all bullshit and a lie. The fact that Alex Diaz-Laportilla said from the dais, we don't know who he was talking to or what he was referring to, that's not what we discussed at your house on Saturday night. I'm sorry. Wait, what was discussed at whose house about what on Saturday night? The process sucked, dude.
Let's tackle some other things here locally before we get to Commissioner Manolo Reyes.
There's other things happening in the community?
There are a few other things happening in the community other than a soccer stadium. Let's begin with 2021 Best Local Girl Gone Bad, Lubby Navarro. Can you tell us what is going on? What's the latest in her story? And tell the people who might not know anything about her story who she is and why we're talking about her.
Lubby Navarro is or Lubby Navarro, as you said, is a Miami-Dade County school board member. This is one of the largest school boards in the country, so it matters. There's a lot of money goes through there. A lot of policies that start here eventually get exported into other major school boards. In fact, our former superintendent, Alberto Carvalho, moved over to the LA County directly from here, the LA County school district. That's a pretty big job. So Lubby Navarro, she calls herself, doctor. She will correct you, and it's in her bio, Dr. Lubby Navarro, because she got an honorary degree from the Catholic University of New Spain, which is located in the 9th floor of an office building in downtown Miami.
Love that.
A couple weeks ago at the school board, they were voting on whether or not to recognize and acknowledge May 5th, 2022 as the National Day of Prayer. which is fine, whatever. But then talk got out of the realm of a national day of prayer and into the realm of unconstitutionality when she said that we need to support this like a preacher, to send a message to our community that we have one creator, and that is God and Jesus Christ. Now, to be fair, she's not a math teacher because that's two creators. She's just a school board member. But that kind of talk is way out of line and way out of place. And in fact, so wildly unconstitutional that the school board attorney consulted with another school board member and told him to go out there and do like a CYA kind of speech where he would say, like, now listen, we didn't mean to exclude, we didn't vote for this because they voted overwhelmingly to support this item. But he's like, we didn't mean to offend anyone because people of different faiths, Jewish people, Muslims, people were coming out like, this is totally inappropriate and unconstitutional. But this is, I think, what we're seeing in this country. We've talked about it before. I mean, this is an effort to turn public schools into Christian madrasas. The idea that in contravention with the First Amendment of the Constitution, that we would bring religion, the idea of Jesus Christ as the sole God to be acknowledged and worshiped in our public schools is grossly inappropriate and is all in furtherance of this what I've referred to as American Taliban, this idea that this Christian white male supremacy that is trying to take over women's bodies, that is trying to disenfranchise not just voters of minority voters, but is also trying to disenfranchise and delegitimize people of other religions, which would our forefathers would be tumbling or are tumbling in their graves right now. Because even those of them that were not secularists, and many of them were, didn't believe in a king and did not believe in an autocracy or a theocracy. They did not want an authoritarian country. They wanted a nation of the people, by the people, for the people, where the king could not be the head of the church and dictate to people how they would worship.
You have been very publicly critical over the years of Kathy Rundle for never prosecuting the crimes of police officers, but recently you've seen something that resembles not atrophying decay in the office. Something has gotten her attention that would pass for a modicum of progress.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'll take credit for this either, Whitty, but it seemed that this might be a case. This may also be a case of activism working, of the voices of the people being heard by those in power. And I've said it on this show, and I've said it for 10, 15 years, it's not a very sexy response when people want to know, hey, why is Miami so mixed up or backwards or corrupt? And I say, really, in a word or two words, state attorney. When you have a top cop who has been in office for nearly 30 years at this point, since Janet Reno left for the Clinton administration, she was the Dade County state attorney. And then Kathy Rundle, one of her deputies, was appointed to the office and has been reelected ever since, every 4 years, oftentimes without any challenger at all. Sometimes she's just on the ballot alone. And in nearly 30 years, she has never prosecuted a police officer for an on-duty killing. Even when we were in an era where there was a proliferation of such events in Miami back in 2011, there were 7 unarmed black men who were shot and killed by City of Miami police officers in an 8-month period. City of Miami is actually, it sounds big. At that time, maybe it had 450,000 people living in it. That was a higher rate of police killings than per capita than even New York, where you have, you're covering ground, with millions of constituents and a gigantic police force. I mean, many multiples of the size of the City of Miami police force. We have seen public corruption metastasize in this community because of Kathy Rundle's failure to prosecute such cases. And I got to say, because, I don't know if it's giving credit where credit's due, or at least pointing out that there has been a more positive trend as of late, even since, certainly in recent years, and particularly since she's been called out for not prosecuting the police, for not prosecuting the prison guards that boiled a prisoner, Darren Rainey, to death to the point that his skin slipped off of his bone. She did not prosecute police officers who have executed unarmed people on video, sometimes when they're surrendering face down. with their hands and legs spread. All of a sudden, we saw her start to take on police shootings, not killings, but police shootings, starting in 2017. And most recently, just since last fall, she charged 5 Miami Beach police officers for harassing a black man here in Miami Beach who was doing nothing but standing back and recording them while they were actually abusing another black man. And this guy was harassed and physically accosted and falsely arrested. She arrested and charged 5 police officers for that. We just saw 4 Miami-Dade prison guards arrested for beating a 60-year-old mentally disabled man to death. In January alone, she charged 3 police officers for minor crimes, but the kind of things she was not previously prosecuting, like for lying in police reports, which was like pretty common here. But she charged 3 different police officers in 3 different cases. I'm not looking for police officers to be charged for crime, but I'm looking for accountability for public officials. We just had a former We just had a former city of North Miami mayoral candidate and a chief of staff for Miami-Dade County Commissioner Jean Monostim. He just got arrested for exploiting the prestige of the commissioner's office in order to misappropriate a public grant, which, if that's now a crime that is going to be prosecuted in Miami, I can tell you there's a lot of public officials who should be very, very afraid. Now, I will say all the same complaints are still... Oh, I'm sorry. Also, she finally, after much justice delayed and justice denied, released an innocent man, Thomas Rainer James, from prison that we talked about last week. This is not an office that really is built and trained and has the experience to prosecute public corruption and police officers who break the law and exonerate innocent people. But they have now, there has been more progress, let's say, in Kathy Rundle's office, and I have to give her props. Again, there's some of the same criticism. No police officers prosecuted for non-duty killing her entire tenure of nearly 3 decades. And a lot of the public corruption cases that she's prosecuting are of black politicians and black people in public life, which statistically in this community is a little out of whack. And so she's getting some fair criticism for that. But otherwise, again, gotta put a spotlight on the good and the bad.
He is always holding public officials accountable. Billy Corben was... You were where the other day when you were leaning basically against the wall at Francis Suarez pulled into the parking lot? You were there waiting for Ken Russell, correct?
No, I was there talking with an aide from Ken Russell's office. Very nice guy over there. We were just talking about the response to the mini doc that we had done.
Well, the thing I wanted to tell the audience is, like someone or something out of a Carl Hiaasen novel, you were leaning against the wall as Francis Suarez pulled in. They locked eyes. The mayor averted his, and the sound that chased him echoing through the halls of justice was Billy Corben sing-songing at him, "Don't bend over for Beckham now."
Now, yeah, I had it now.
You did. You had the now in there as well.
It was deserted. City Hall was like quiet. It was Wednesday afternoon. There was like tumbleweed going through the parking lot. Everybody had left for the day.
You are an irritant. You are an agitator. We like that you have a platform in South Florida. We share it with our first Miami City Commissioner next. A historic first here on Because Miami. A Miami City Commissioner, District 4, has agreed to get Billy Corben's hot and tough questions. Manny Reyes is with us. I don't know how you secured. You have been somebody who's been very critical of politics in Miami. Everyone is bought and paid for. So welcome to the program, Manny Reyes. And Billy's got, by way of introduction, Billy wants to explain some of the things that have happened with you recently.
Well, I want to start at the beginning, because before this controversial meeting on the Mel Reese Inter-Miami deal last week, the fireworks were already flying on a hot mic. And when, the commissioner knows what I'm talking about, when Commissioner Reyes was coming up on the dais, Commissioner Diaz de la Portilla, Mayor Francis Suarez, and the city manager Art Noriega were having a little conspiratorial meeting talking about how people who are against this deal are desperate to give themselves importance. This is all happening in Spanish, by the way. They see that we are under control, working together, united. We are all good. And just as Commissioner Reyes is coming on the dais, he says they see that you were in control of the situation and that other comepinga that's coming this way, referencing Commissioner Reyes, no, not him. He's not in control of the situation. But most importantly, he refers to him as a comepinga. And Dan, I'm going to have to volley this over to you.
What a great way to interview and introduce Manny Reyes. That is
because Miami. What do you want? I didn't say it.
That is an eater of dicks, is what it is that he has been accused of being. So welcome on that note, Manny. I don't think you've been introduced that way before. What kind of unprofessionalism is there at a live mic that these people behave this way frequently?
Well, to start with, it's not Manny. Manny is my son. Yo soy Manolo.
Disculpa.
Yo soy Manolo. And let me tell you how when I heard the video, and people ask me what do I think about it. Well, I just referred to there is a condition in psychology, you see, that is called projection. And projection means that you accuse people of what you are.
Okay.
And probably he was projecting when he said that.
Oh, my. Okay. Well, famously, Commissioner, you and Joe Carollo and Diaz Le Portilla are known colloquially as the three amigos around town. You have been a very reliable voting bloc, the three of you, be it 4-1 against Ken Russell or 3-2 against Ken Russell and another commissioner at any given time. But you broke with them on the big one here. This was the biggest real estate deal in Miami history. You had a billionaire oligarch who's been in this community for generations, lobbying really hard, hiring every lobbyist in town and working everybody from every angle. And yet you were a steadfast no. And you stood your ground for years on this, breaking with the other commissioners that you are pretty well known for often voting alongside. Why? And what has that been like for your experience in a very hostile environment of City Hall?
Well, let me clarify something. I vote my conscience all the time. And if I think that it will benefit the city of Miami, I might be wrong or I may be right, but if I believe that what it is proposed is going to benefit the city of Miami, I would vote in favor of that. I have many times voted against it, and also I had many times I had been the one that has presented amendments in order to make the ordinance or the resolution that have been proposed to make it much better. And you think that I will gang in on Commissioner Russell? It is that sometimes Commissioner Russell have proposed many policies that it would have not been beneficial for the area that he's been proposing. Like for example, in Coconut Grove, he wanted to declare all those small little shotgun houses as historic, by declaring historic. Those the owners, they had their hands tied even to change a window would have cost them a ton of money, and they will have no future. If you wanted to sell it, who's going to buy a property that you cannot touch or remodel or demolish? And we had many arguments about that and about many other things, and we have locked horns because of that, because of the policies that he was proposing. He was not. And the same thing happened with the stadium. When they proposed the stadium, they came out of the blue sky with a couple of pages claiming that was a project without any backup for the numbers that they were proposing. And besides that, the process was violated. I'm a firm believer on the bidding process. We have an RFP, and even states it's stated the city statutes, every land that is going to be used should go through a bidding process. But unfortunately, there is also saying in Spanish that he who made the law also found a way to circumvent it and to violate it. Que hizo la ley, hizo la trampa. And there is this process which totally circumvent the bidding process, the public bidding process, which is called a referendum. Yeah, 3 commissioners, they vote to bring this question to a referendum, and that referendum goes to the voters. And keep in mind that the person that or the institution or the company that it is asking for that referendum, that it is because it's going to be a substantial economic benefit to them.
Sure.
Therefore, they will spend a lot of money campaigning in favor and disinforming the people. You see, and in this case, they used the stadium as a bait. You see, and but the stadium was the least of the development that was going to be done at that place at that park, which is Melreese. It was used as a golf course, and that was the least of the problem. The problem there was that. The real objective was to develop that area into a huge shopping center. With it as the way it reads, the contract reads, it is a minimum of 1 million square feet of retail and of businesses, and also a minimum of 750 rooms in a hotel or hotels, plural.
Right.
You see, when you say minimum, it could be infinitum. You know, you can build whatever you want.
Yeah, Commissioner, let me ask you though. You guys, it did pass referendum 60%. And then the commission and the city staff, the city manager's office, did have an opportunity to negotiate this very complicated contract. And that is the question. You know, that was the goal of what I tried to do, was pull this out of the back rooms and bring it out into the sunshine to see a more publicly accountable negotiation. And Ken Russell seemed to be the swing vote. You were a hard no. They had 3 votes, it seemed, in the bag, and they needed to swing Ken Russell, who also seemed to be in the bag, but was playing some kind of political game. But he had all the leverage, and I can't figure out, what did he get for that leverage? What did he get for it? It seemed like the city left a lot of money and a lot of community benefits on the table.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't know. You should ask Ken Russell why he changed his mind, or why he voted that way. And why he said no before, and then after a short break, he came back and said yes. So I have to ask you. That is a question that you have to play and ask him.
I did invite Ken Russell on the program. He did not respond. But there was a 30-minute recess, right? The shit hit the fan, and it looked like he had finally hit wit's end. Ken Russell has taken a lot of abuse on the dais, particularly from Commissioners Carollo and DLP over years, and he finally seemed to have a meltdown and say, I'm not going to take this anymore. And then the chairwoman, Christine King, is struggling to try to turn the mics off, decided to declare a recess for 15 to 30 minutes for everybody to cool down. In that 30-minute gap, I refer to that as the city of Miami's version of the 18-and-a-half-minute gap on Nixon's Watergate tapes. It's a mystery. It's a mystery what was said, what went down. We know the mayor kind of put his arm around Ken Russell's shoulders and escorted him off to have a backroom conversation. Do you have any idea what happened in that missing 30 minutes? All we know is we were negotiating publicly, and then all of a sudden we were negotiating behind closed doors, and Ken Russell came back and said, okay, we good. And he didn't seem that he got much more than he had 30 minutes before.
Well, that's the mystery of it, but I want you also to know that most of all the negotiations were behind closed doors. I mean, my take when I first came in, and after I heard the tape, the video. I mean, I saw the video and I heard what was said. This the whole deal was cooked before it got to the commission. I mean, and
Right.
because they are, I mean,
Well, I have a question.
We're safe.
I have a question about that. Just as you guys were, as everybody was yelling at not everybody, but DLP and Ken Russell were yelling at each other, and Christine King was trying to calm everybody down. DLP said something very interesting, which he was caught on the hot mic while Christine King was trying to shut them off. He said, quote, "That's not the conversation we had Saturday night at your house," end quote. Do you have any idea who he was talking to, what he was referring to? As you said, it sounded like the fix was in, but what was this secret meeting last Saturday at somebody's house?
I don't know. That's
you weren't invited?
I wish somebody tell me.
You weren't invited, Commissioner?
No.
No invitation?
I was never invited to any negotiations. I was never invited to any homes. I was never invited to any dinners. I was never invited to any trips. I was never invited, period. Not even for a Cuban coffee.
So, Alex Diaz-Laportilla, the commissioner, it seemed that he had a liquid lunch, and I don't mean a protein shake. In the morning, he was sharp and concise, and then after lunch, he was sloppy. His speech was slurred. Could you smell DLP's breath? Because a lot of people commented in the room that they could smell his breath when he was talking.
Well, I'm not that close to him to be able to smell it. But I didn't smell it.
All right. Okay. Well,
I mean, those are hearsay, and
sure.
And I'm not going to comment on that.
All right. I'll interview Jack about that. Jack Daniels about that. But let me ask you, Tomas Regalado, when he was a city commissioner, was the sole vote against the Marlins Park boondoggle, which was at the time the worst sports welfare deal in the history of the country. It was a 4-1 vote on that deal, with Tomas Regalado being against it. And his next stop after that was the mayor's office. Well, I have to ask, you being the sole vote, you really taking a stand on this issue for the people of Miami and trying to you were up there, even though they knew you were a no vote, you were still trying to negotiate better terms from the dais last Thursday night. So my question for you is, are you following that Tomas Regalado roadmap from the city commission, from a 4-1 opposition on a sports welfare deal into the mayor's office?
Well, let me tell you something. My vote was based on what my conscience dictated. I could not, in a clear conscience, vote in favor of a deal that I don't think that I know it not benefit. It doesn't benefit the city the way it should be benefit. And I clearly stated it to, this has nothing to do with future aspirations. It has nothing to do with any animosity towards Jorge Mas or anybody. I told him straight to his face, they said, this is only business. Your business is to multiply your millions and make a lot of money. My business is to protect the interests of the people of Miami, the ones that elected me. And what I did, and I will do it again. And I'm a man that take a position and will face the consequences. But I never consider that will take me to the mayor's seat. Or I did it because I was trying to protect, and I will do it again. And anytime that I have the opportunity, I will do everything that is possible for me to protect the best interest of the city of Miami. People don't realize that when the city of Miami leases or rent their property, you see, the return that we get, the higher return that we get, and the better conditions of businesses that we get, benefits the residents of the city of Miami. The more money we get, the more services and better services that we can provide. There's less need to raise taxes, you see. And my concern, and I ran for office not for fame or fortune, just because I wanted to bring my ideas to the city of Miami. That's why I tried 7 times. You see, that I wanted.
He's the Susan Lucci of the city of Miami.
I beg your pardon?
No, it's a.
He just made a terrible soap opera reference that would be lost on you. A woman who lost a lot when she was nominated for awards in soap operas. He just dragged the interview into loser game show sound.
Yeah, sorry.
Please continue though.
Okay. and that's why what I ran. I didn't run to serve anybody. I mean, no special interest, and I call it like I see it.
And to that end, how are you getting along with the other two amigos right now, breaking with the voting block on this very big issue?
Well, that is for the future to the bigger time.
Okay.
Let's see how they behave with me. You see,
Billy, you think Ken Russell
I like to reciprocate all the time. You give me love, and I give you love.
Billy thinks that Ken Russell ended his career with this move. Do you agree, Commissioner?
I think that he is in a tough position, but how is he's going to explain being him from, such a liberal that he claims to be, and appealing to the liberal, part of the Democratic Party, and he votes against losing all this amount of land. You see, destroying this park. And there is another problem that affects this deal. You see, there is statute in the city of Miami that claims, clearly states that if any part of a park is lost, any land is lost, have to be replaced. And what they're doing, and from what I heard, they're trying to replace this land with city of Miami land by rezoning existing land that could be used, and I'm going to talk about that in a while, but that all land that is owned by the city of Miami, rezoning as park, you see, as park, which is, that is, it's fraudulent, because it shouldn't be done.
And ultimately it will cost the taxpayers money on the back end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going into that, and I made it clear the other day, last Thursday, that will represent a cost to the city of Miami. And let me explain that. You see, we have a tract of land that we have now on 12th Avenue and 20th Street, that is one of the land that is going to be proposed to be rezoned as a park. Well, that land, the potential of that land is tremendous. That land could bring a lot of revenues to the city of Miami. By rezoning it as park, that land will definitely not bring any revenues to the city of Miami, which is the opportunity cost of rezoning that land is very high, and that is a cost. That is a cost to the city, and that is the cost to the residents of the city of Miami.
My last question, Commissioner. I'm sorry to interrupt, because I know we got to wrap it up. We're running out of time, but my last question is, is this a concern of the city? We've heard a lot of talk about how Inter-Miami and Mostec will cover the cost of the remediation of the arsenic poison on the property before they can do any additional building, and that they will cover that. I don't know what the final deal will say, but they will cover that expense up into a certain amount of money. Here is the concern. The city of Miami has not done that to date, in no small part because of the expense of doing that, which is why it is perpetually zoned to be a golf course. But my question is this: what I understood from an attorney is that what will occur now is that the Moss Beckham Group will go to the federal government and the state government in pursuit of a grant that will cover most, if not all, of the expense of that remediation, because the feds, of course, have an interest in seeing toxic land remediated by developers. But then apparently what the feds do, in an effort to recoup some or all of that money for the taxpayers, they then go after the original polluters. For example, if I bought a gas station and wanted to turn it into a restaurant, I could go into the federal government and say, I need a grant for $500,000 to remediate and clean up the gas and the poison. And then they would go after Exxon or whomever to recover those expenses. My understanding here is that in the event that they do get some kind of public money to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, the federal government could then go back to the original polluters of that land, which was the city of Miami itself, to recover that money, which would mean that all the talk of the team paying for remediation is a total smokescreen and a lie, because ultimately the city of Miami taxpayers down the road will cover all of that expense. Have you heard about that? Has that been discussed in negotiations, or is that something they just didn't want to talk about because it's going to happen?
I brought it up. I said, "Are you looking for the brownfield money?" And at the first meeting back in 2018, he said that he wasn't going to look for any federal or state monies to.
Sure.
And I told him, and I said, you realize that any funds that you get from the state or from the federal government, they are taxpayers' money. You see, when you claim that you are not going to the taxpayers, they're not going to spend a single penny. Well, if you go after those funds, you are going after taxpayers.
But Commissioner, they are under this current deal allowed to pursue state and federal subsidies, correct?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, but it's a contradiction.
Right.
If you are not going to go, if you're claiming that the taxpayers, they're not going to spend any money, and you go after federal and state funds, you are going after taxpayers' money.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think it is going to cost the city taxpayers a lot more than anybody is anticipating. They know, but we don't know.
If the federal government, follows that procedure of going after the original polluter, yes, we were there. That was a dump.
Yeah, the incinerator. Yeah, of course, the city of Miami incinerator.
And that's why it was used as a golf course. Right. Because you couldn't use it as a park. You have to clean it.
Right. Commissioner, making history here on the Because Miami podcast. Thank you so much for accepting, being the first to accept my invitation. And I do want to correct something at the top that Dan said, where I'm always talking about how everyone is on the take. I will say that is not Commissioner Reyes' reputation. That is not his reputation at all. He says a lot of things and votes on a lot of things and does a lot of things I disagree with, needless to say. But his reputation is not being one of those people that is anyone's puppet or in the pocket of any special interests.
Let me tell you something just to add. One statement that I always made, I'm richer than any of those people that deals with the city of Miami. Because if they don't have any money to buy me, they don't have enough money to buy me, I'm richer than them. And I'm the richest guy in the whole world. I have the best family, I have health, and I have the best strength in the world.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Commissioner Manolo Reyes for the maiden commissioner voyage on the show. Gracias, señor.
Gracias a ustedes. Saluda, papi.